Chris, how do you say your last name?
Finill.
Finill. All right,
yeah.
and you are in England, right?
That's right, yeah. We're about 30 miles south of London.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about how we end up meeting on online? What is the story behind us here?
Well, it goes back an awfully long way, as I'm sure it does with you as well. We've probably both been running a long time. I started running kind of seriously as long ago as when I was 8 or 9, and then started running competitively when I was 13 or 14, and I'm 61 now, so I've been running all of my life, mainly competitively all of my life as well. But obviously the strand that ties us together is the common experience of running across the United States, which we've both done.
Exactly. However, I have to correct you. You because you don't know me that well yet.
Sure,
you think
yeah.
I have been a runner for a long time, and that's not the case.
Okay,
I was
how long
actually
have you been running for?
No, I was actually a couch potato, and I didn't have any running experience. I was really not an athlete at all until about 5 months before I did my first run across America. So
Gosh,
I went from nothing to transcontinental runner in just about 5 months.
That's one hell of a transformation.
Yeah, but the inspiration for that has a lot to do with England.
With England?
Yes.
Okay, explain.
It is because I knew that I wanted to do something, and I knew that I would say around June 2010. I knew I wanted to do something very, very difficult. I knew I wanted to be like a major challenge, but I wasn't very sure about what it would be. And a friend of mine told me, she gave me a suggestion, because we both love comedy, and we love comedy. Yeah. And we have been following some of the same comedians. And she mentioned to me, hey, Eddie Izzard ran around England. Did you know that? I said, no kidding. Eddie he's not an athlete. He said, yeah, but he just did like 47 marathons in 51 days.
So Eddie Izzard.
Yeah, Eddie Izzard.
Yeah.
So he did 1,100 miles carrying a flag of each country that he was going through. And he was raising money for sport
relief?
Sport relief, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I am a fan of the guy. We are nearly the same age. At that, before the run, we were at similar weight, similar injuries. So there was a lot in common between us. And when I saw that a comedian with no athletic background went around and ran, around England and didn't self-destruct, I thought, well, if he could do that, then I can do it.
Yeah, you're right. He got a lot of publicity for that because he was already famous. But it was impressive because, as you say, he had no real athletic background, but he had a tremendous mental approach.
Exactly.
And he seemed to fuel his whole run by eating ice cream, I seem to remember.
Exactly. And I did that by drinking beer along the way. So we did in similar ways. So I was inspired by him a lot. Yeah. And during interviews that I gave during the run and after, sometimes reporters would ask me if I was inspired by the movie Forrest Gump. And I would answer that, no, not at all. I just felt like running. Yeah. And which confused the hell out of them. But yeah, but really I watched Forrest Gump, of course, but to me there was no confusion. Forrest Gump was a fictional character to me. I like some of his characteristics. I like the character a lot, but I never thought, oh, if Forrest could do it, I should do it. No, there was no connection in my mind. But with Eddie Izzard, yes, there was that connection.
Yeah.
And
he inspired a lot of people in England to take up running and see themselves as people that could undertake these challenges, as you say, without necessarily having a background at all. But you say you haven't got a long history with running, but
not at all.
But when did you start? When did you actually start working towards the challenge of running across America?
On July 27. July 27, 2010.
Yeah, so
because,
you're 10 years now. That's a decade.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a decade.
It will be a decade.
It's quite a long time.
It's because I took the decision during the first week of July. Then I was visiting a friend in Panama City, and I told him what I was going to do and all that, and then I went online to Facebook and I told everyone. I told all my friends, this is what I'm going to do, you know.
Yes.
And then the next day I start training. So that was July 27. So I know the date exactly. So first I told everyone that I was going to do it. I committed to it before I ran a single mile.
Yeah. Yeah, they say that's a very good way of motivating yourself. You tell everyone around you, and then you feel really committed to delivering.
Yeah, actually, there was a young guy here that said he wanted to do it, and he wanted me to coach him. And I never coach anybody, and you understand when I tell a little more about the way I think about running, you understand why. But at that time, he approached me and he said, "Oh, I want to do it. I'm going to run to Los Angeles, and want to know how much I would charge him for coaching." And I said, "Well, I'm going to charge you nothing. It will be $0, but you will have to take $5,000 of your money, and you are going to put that on escrow. If you finish the run, you get your money back." But and I know that he is that this guy is he's very Republican, very conservative. So I said, if you finish the run, you get your money back. If you don't finish the run, I'm going to donate the $5,000 to the Democrats in your name. So that will be double terrible for you. So if you don't finish.
So how did he feel? Did he take the challenge?
No, he didn't. So and that was the intention. If he was not completely committed to it, I want him to give up sooner. Yeah. So he doesn't waste his time, and definitely doesn't waste my time.
It's a very good way of flushing out his intentions.
Oh yeah. So either you commit completely to this, or I don't care.
Very good.
Because I really think that some people, either they are incredibly stubborn naturally, in an exaggerated way, which is a kind of a flaw of personality, but either they are very stubborn, or they are the kind of person that has such a high level of determination that you know that they will do it, or they will put everything into it. You know, like short of self-destructing, they are going to do anything, all it takes, and they are going to really dedicate and take it seriously and give it total priority, because that's what makes it or breaks it, is how much priority you give. If you don't practice, if you don't set aside your job, your relationships, your family, you know, if you don't give up your rent, or you know, your apartment and your car and everything else has to stay. You know,
but by the time we were stepping out of the Pacific, 7,000 miles away from our homes, we were pretty committed.
Exactly. To me, the feeling in the beginning, before you do it, you are committed, but it is, in a certain way, it is too theoretical, right? You know that you want to do it, but it's not the same as doing it. But then after the first day, when you are already on the road, and then the third day, fourth day, and you're feeling all the pain, and you have all those problems of the beginning, at some point, a psychological phase change happens, or at least that's what happened to me. At around 2 weeks, I felt that, okay, I am doing this. I'm really here. I felt that I'm here. You know, I'm not imagining doing this anymore. I'm not inside my head anymore. Now I am on the road. So I felt emotionally present. And from that point on, that I felt emotionally present, then the entire journey felt like a tunnel. You know, a tunnel that the only way out is through the other end of it. That was the feeling that I had.
But that's saying you're in a tunnel is to say you're committed to it and you're there in the moment, and I completely get that. But that's not the same as knowing you're going to do it.
Yeah,
we
it's
never
different.
felt, especially for the first 4 or 5 weeks, we had no real confirmation that we were going to do it. It was just the case of seeing how far we could get before something fell off, and luckily eventually nothing fell off.
You're saying did you do that with someone else?
Yeah, Steve Pope and I ran across together.
Okay. All right.
We've written our chapter in the book together.
Okay. Yeah, on purpose I didn't read any of it because I'm waiting for my copy to arrive, and I want to read it on paper. And I ordered mine already, but I want to read it on paper. I don't know, for whatever reason or no reason, I decide to do it that way. Yeah. So I'm doing the interviews without, or doing the podcasts without having read about it at all. Yeah. Which is kind of cool. It's fresh. But to me, that feeling came at 2 weeks, and I wrote a chapter of the book exactly about that transition. Yeah. Actually, when I say the books, let me clarify. There is this book that we wrote together. 27 people. Yeah. Actually, 29 people.
29 people, 27
29
trips.
people in 27 transcons. But I also have my own book that I publish and I give it away on my website. So on my book, I dedicate a specific chapter to that transition, to that psychological transition, and also I explain my method for training to it, because I knew that I was not going to try to do it really fast, because I was not an athlete. I knew that the best I can do is not self-destruct, not try to not get injured, and figure out a method that I can keep going, saving enough energy so I have I can recuperate overnight, and the next day do it again and recuperate overnight, and also do it fast enough that I wouldn't spend all year on the road, because I had serious doubts that I could psychologically handle it if it took 6 months or more, which I don't know if that's a correct statement. I believe that I suffered a lot on the last 3 weeks of it, but when I did it the second time, the last 3 weeks were really difficult. But now I'm thinking that it's not because I was on the road for so long, but because I was less than 3 weeks from the end. So if I did it to finish in 6 months, probably the last 3 weeks would be really difficult anyway.
Yeah.
Or if I did in 2 months, the last 2 or 3 weeks would be difficult. So apparently I have a problem dealing with knowing that I'm near finishing.
Yeah. If you enjoyed it enough the first time to want to do it a second time, weren't you worried that your experience the second time would spoil your memories of the first occasion?
No, that's not the case. I didn't do it because I was missing it. Actually, there is a coincidence it's pretty coincidental that I did the same route again. I did the same route for convenience because I already had a lot of friends along the way.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do it without a jogging stroller. I want to use only a small backpack. So I would need more support along the way. So for convenience, I chose to do the same route running back. But the first run was a challenge, was that personal challenge.
Yeah.
I wanted to change my life. I want to change my body. I want to become athletic, and all those things that I talk about in some podcasts, and definitely I talk about it on the book. But the second time, that challenge was not there anymore. So now I wanted to make it a different kind of trip. So the second time was a pilgrimage. About a year before, so in 2013, I saw a movie called The Way, that with Martin Sheen, that they go to El Camino de Santiago in Spain, and he does El Camino, and that was very inspiring to me. I thought, wow, I really want to do a pilgrimage. It sounds like a great idea. I would be able to deepen all that psychological transformation I went through on the first time. Now I can take it further into a different kind of travel that would be amazing, and it was. But the psychological motivation was very different. The style of the daily life is different because I was not running. I was now almost exclusively walking. I only ran like 10% of it at most, and I was doing more hours every day. So I end up doing it faster, which is pretty ironic. But I was focusing on looking what is around me, enjoying the scenery, enjoying people, meeting all my friends. It was a much more social event for me. And then later, I actually went to Spain and I did El Camino de Santiago, El Camino Francés. I did half of it actually, and I feel. A friend just asked me earlier today if I want to go and do the other half. And I said, no, I have no interest. But I would like to go and do the first half again because it was so beautiful. Because you go on the first half, you go to the mountains. And that part is gorgeous. It's amazing. And the beauty is so much that I would like to do that part again. Actually, a little is actually just half of it. It's from the border of France to a city called Burgos. I really like it. But the next time, I want to do it without any backpack. I want to do it with just a vest. So I want to bring my phone, the charger, the toothbrush, and an extra pair of underwear.
Yeah.
And socks, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Do it without any luggage.
You'll have to run it at a warm time of year.
And I want to do it in September.
Yeah.
So it will be September of some year. I'm going to do El Camino.
It's a good time.
The first half of El Camino. Yeah. But I want to do it jogging and without luggage.
So when you were going across with a stroller, how did you deal with the deserts?
The deserts, I was expecting that it was going to be something terrible. It wasn't. It is uncomfortable because of longer periods without stopping somewhere to take a shower. But I would say maybe it was my favorite part. I really learned to enjoy it. I kept remembering this phrase, this quote from Neil Armstrong when he was talking about the moon. He called it magnificent desolation. And I had that impression about the deserts from West Texas all the way to California. The desert is of course it's impractical, it's difficult, it has its own logistical problems, but when you look at it, the colors at the end of the day and the expense and perhaps because I didn't grow up in the desert, I grew up in places that were not desert. It looks so amazing to me. The views, it's so alien, so beautiful. It's just habitable, just enough that you can survive going through it, but it's gorgeous.
Yeah, Steve and I found that because the desert was least familiar to us in terms of the landscape we were used to back in England, it made the biggest impression on us. And also because we were running from the west to the east, it was the early stages of the run, so it's all in our minds very vivid and dramatic.
Yes, definitely is.
And dangerous, it had that feeling of there's a kind of feeling of danger and challenge about it, which running
Why
through
do you think so?
Indiana and Pennsylvania you don't really get.
Why?
Well, the desolation, the distances between towns, the heat. We ran through Nevada in August, so it was really, really hot and a big challenge.
I did my runs during winter, so
yeah,
it was
that's a different set of challenges.
Very different. I prefer to deal with cold.
Yeah, it's easy. It's easier to stay warm in the cold than to stay cool in the hot. That's for sure.
Exactly. Plus, as you mentioned in the beginning, you have been a runner, all your life, so you know your preferences and your limits better than I knew at that time. At that time, I didn't know if I was going to make it.
Yeah. Do you think if you were, obviously part of it's not conventional to take up running 5 months before you run across America.
Yeah.
Do you think, knowing what you know now, you'd have done it as confidently as you actually did through ignorance?
Thank you for that question. I love this kind of question that I cannot answer. I don't know, or at least I don't know now.
Yeah.
Maybe in a few days I will know.
Yeah. Yeah. If somebody said to me,
know.
If somebody came to me, I know I've been a runner all my life. It's just a really, really important part of my life, as it is yours. But it's been part of my life since I was a baby. If somebody came to me and said, "I'm taking up running now, and in 5 months' time, I'm going to run across America," I'd completely discourage them from doing that.
Yeah.
And if I'd done that to you, you wouldn't have run across and succeeded.
Actually, I think in this sense I was lucky. I had a friend that was very supportive of me, and she really helped. She gave me materials, she gave me equipment, and help. She traveled along the way to visit a few cities that I was going to visit, introduced me to many people.
Yeah.
And one of the things she did, and she was a marathon runner, so we knew each other her name is Eden, and we knew each other for some 2 or 3 years before that. And I remember many times when she was visiting me in Boston, and sometimes she would say, remember at that time I was not a runner at all, right? And sometimes she would say, "Oh, I'm so tired, I'm stressed, I had a bad day and I'm really exhausted, so I need to go out for a run." And she would go out and run, and that didn't make any sense to me. It was the craziest thing to say, how you're tired and then you go run? That doesn't make any sense.
It's a different type, though.
But now I understand.
Yeah.
Now I understand that, first of all, there are different kinds of being tired. So you have a certain kind of fatigue that by acquiring another kind of fatigue that is familiar and very positive to you, helps you get out of the first one.
course.
And that's what was happening to her. So she would replace the fatigue of the stress of the day with the positive fatigue of just having worked out with something that she finds pleasant, right? And now I really like running. I'm not good at it at all. I would say I'm a jogger. I'm good in this. I would say that by the way that I measure, I am the best runner in the world. But that's by my metric. And my metric is like this. I measure it by how much it improves my life. And in that metric, it's very high. Mm-hmm. And I measure it on how much I enjoy it. What is the feeling that I have when I'm actually doing it? Mm-hmm. And in that sense, it's also very high. Yeah. I don't measure by how fast I do it. I don't measure by how far.
Yeah, under your own terms.
It doesn't matter. I can be, sometimes, now I am in a better shape, but there were times after the run, there were times that I could barely go and run a mile. I lost a lot of not the endurance. I lost some of the momentum of it. But still, I would go out, and even that 1 mile that I jogged, it was a very pleasant experience to me. So now when I go out and I run a little, and it's usually with friends, and we have a beer and run and go to a bar and enjoy, or sometimes I go to visit friends and I decide to just run home, even though it may be far. But I think, okay, let me shock the system once and do this several miles by walking and running. So I like to just shock I like that experience. I like to shock the system occasionally. So like some time ago, I went to visit a friend some 10 miles away. And so I asked someone to give me a ride because I decided that on the way back I was going to run. And because it's so out of my routine. So you see, I do things that professional runners and trainers, they wouldn't recommend. They would say, no, that's not a good idea because you're going to cause a lot of damage. And yeah, of course it is. But the pleasure that I had doing it, knowing that I could, knowing that I had the psychological makeup to do something like it. Yeah. Oh, it's incredibly pleasant. And that is another thing. Almost everyone have dreams when they are flying, right? You probably do that. Sometimes in your dreams, you fly. In my dreams, I run. And when I'm running in a dream, it's always a incredibly pleasant run. I'm always having this amazing, great time. And the places are beautiful. And I'm running on the edges of mountains and cliffs. And it's
sounds
always
like Colorado.
gorgeous. Huh?
Sounds like Colorado.
Yeah, it's or the Alps. I have been to the Alps and I did a little bit of jogging there, and it was magnificent. So when I run in my dreams, it's always this deliciously happy experience.
Now, when I run in my dreams, I'm always trying to get away from something, and I find my legs don't work. So it's always a bad experience. And then I wake up and I'm relieved that in real life I can still run.
Yeah. So yeah, in my subconscious mind, running is linked with freedom and pleasure.
So if you discovered running in your adult life, do you wish you'd been running from the time you were 10? Do you think you've lost time there?
No, because that's one of the things I thought about a lot during my first run. I had 4 months to think about everything, to put my entire life back on the design board. So I could revisit every regret. I could think about everyone that I disappointed. I could think about every business that I had, every job and opportunity, and everyone that I loved. And so I could think of everything. And one of the things that I thought about a lot was that idea of choosing what to compare with what. And one thing that I decided to not do anymore for me is I never compare what happened with what could happen. And it's like a psychological exercise that I do, that I never compare it, because it's impossible to know how it would be in that parallel universe in which you took a different decision.
Yeah.
It's impossible to know because it's impossible to know. Yeah, if I start running at 10, maybe I was run over by a truck at 12 and nothing else happened. There is no way to compare. You can
take that too far though, because clearly every fork in your life means you bar something else from happening.
Exactly, but then I prefer
you can still identify good and bad decisions.
Of course, there are some decisions that I consider that they were poor decisions, but not because I'm comparing with what would be a parallel, an alternative reality to that. I just look at what happened after that. What was the consequence of that decision? Okay, that was a poor. that was not good. But then I do this exercise now, looking to the future, because a lot of people think that if they had an opportunity to go to the past and make a small change in their past, then their present would be a lot different, right? People normally think that. But so why don't they think that by making a small change today, they can affect the future? If you could go to the past and make a small change and improve it, why not make a small change today and improve the future?
Yeah.
Right? So I tend to, when I'm looking at the future, then I make that comparison, because now those parallel universes didn't happen yet. They are all possible. Right? And then I do my best to simulate in my mind what are the most likely scenarios if I go this way or that way, and what are the decisions that I can take today to choose the one I prefer. And that is a matter of, and I'm not saying that it's not useful at all to do what you just suggested. I just decided to arbitrarily not do it. As a matter of personal discipline. It's like I'll give you another example that may give you more context. I decided to clearly avoid and be very careful with using the word try. In my normal conversation, in daily life, in every situation, I don't say I'll try to do this, or I'll try to finish this by the end of the day, or I'll try to get back to. I just don't use this word, because I think it by not using, I have to choose the alternative, and the alternative can be commitment. So if I tell you,
I will or I won't.
if you ask me, oh, can you send me the copy of your chapter by Monday? I will not say I'll try to do it. There is no way I'll say that. But what I may say is that I can't, or that I don't want to, or I commit to do it by a certain point. Because if I say I commit to give it back to you by Monday, now I am on the hook. I put myself against the wall.
Yeah. So
and I force myself to do it.
When you decided to run across America with 5 months of running experience behind you, did you say to yourself, I will try to run across America?
No.
Because
I said to myself,
I will run across. To say I will run across America is a very big call.
I said from day one, from July 26, I said I will run from Miami to Los Angeles.
Yeah. Now
I was very specific.
Yeah.
I even said exactly the place that I was running from and to.
Yeah.
I said I will run from South Beach to Venice Beach.
Yeah. Now the fact that you did that means that in a way I can't challenge you on it, because you did run from Florida to California. But saying I will do that with 5 months experience before you'd done it would have classed you in my mind as either arrogant or naive.
Or stupid.
Or stupid. Yeah, you choose.
No, there are a lot of things that I did in my life where I really took the risk of failing. I'm not afraid of failure. This is one thing that is very clear if you get to know me. I'm not afraid of failure. I take the risk. But in my life in general, I failed a few times, but I won a lot more than I failed.
Yeah.
You know, but this was the kind of challenge that I chose, knowing that this is so big. When I took the decision on July 26, I knew that this is so big that I cannot do it now. I will have to first grow into the person that can possibly do it. I knew it. I knew that on July 26 it was impossible. But I thought, maybe with a few months, I can learn the techniques and I can learn enough and I can practice enough that I will make it, I'll transform this from impossible to bloody difficult. Bloody difficult I can do. I'm not presuming that it's going to be easy. And I was not even presuming that it was going to be reasonable. I just wanted to be possible. Yeah. And the training was aimed to solve that problem. So what it is that I need to solve? And I thought the first thing is I need to learn running form. It really helped that I read the book Born to Run before doing it. Because I thought if running form is not good enough, if the running form is not very nearly perfect, I'm going to get injuries, and I'm going to get injuries very early. Because whatever imperfection you have in your moves, now you're multiplying that imperfection by 3,000 miles. So it's going to send you to the hospital. So I thought first thing I need to solve is I need to have a really good running form. Second, I need to get used to eat while I run. And the third is I need to figure out how to recover in just 14 hours. Because if I'm going to spend 10 hours on the road, 10 hours moving, let's say 8 hours actually moving, 2 hours doing whatever you need to do, having lunch, taking breakfast, preparing your camping. So I know I only have 14 hours to recover. So how do I recover in 14 hours? On those three things, I nail it. I learned to run really economically with perfect running form so I don't hurt myself. I learned to choose the food correctly and eat it at the proper pace so I don't throw up on the side of the road. I didn't have any nutritional problem, even though I went through the desert where it's very difficult to find good food. Even sometimes you arrive at a little town and the only thing they have is Burger King, and the gas station. So how do I go through that kind of environment? And the third thing is I became really good at saving energy and recovering. So in the morning, I was, of course, over time, I felt, you feel the weight of some accumulated damage that you're accumulating a little bit, but I was recovering well enough that the next day I could do it again, and the next day I could do it again.
But I think part of that was to get to that stage within 5 months of deciding to run across the states. You obviously had some physical makeup that gave you an advantage, which you only really tapped into and discovered once you tried. So if you were an average person saying I'm going to run across the states in 5 months, you'd have probably not had a good enough running style to adapt that quickly to a very good running style.
I believe that
similarly, lots of people can't run and eat and then run. It's a difficult thing for some people to do.
I believe that I was able to achieve a really good running style because I didn't have any. If I was an experienced runner and I had, let's say, I learned to run for speed, run on the track, for instance, I would be very good at that. So when I see people that they are good runners for a certain style, usually I recommend, well, you should use that style then because you already know how to do it. But in my case, I didn't have any. I didn't have any experience.
I know a lot of people who've taken up running quite recently, and just because you come to running with a blank sheet of paper doesn't mean to say you can instantly or with a bit of thought become a good stylist. You know, some people naturally run well, some people naturally run badly. It can be improved, but most people have a style that is an extension of their walking style, which they've had all their lives, and that itself can create issues if they try and then become a runner. And so you obviously took it seriously, and you honed yourself to be a good stylist, but you probably had some natural advantages that you're perhaps underplaying or not really acknowledging.
Maybe the answer to what you just said is in the book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by John Pirsig. He's talking mostly about philosophy in that book, and he talks a lot about Zen Buddhism. And he says that there is no way to learn to be a perfect painter or a perfect mechanic or a perfect anything. What you can do is make yourself as perfect as possible, and then you do that thing naturally, right? So adapting that idea to what you just said, I would say this. I was not great at anything athletic at that time, but there is one thing that I have been really good throughout my life. And I would say I am exceptionally good at this, and that is learning. I have a fantastic adapted mind to learning new things. So, and that's because of the education that I had, or the particular kind of education that I had. For instance, I went to a school that was shitty, but the shitty in some senses, but in terms of discipline, in terms of the way that they treat people, but where it came to learning the very fundamentals of certain things, learning to express yourself well, and learning to read and understand logic and thinking first principles. In those things, that school was good. And my mother was the kind of, she's still alive. My mother is the kind of person that when I was very, very little, she, as soon as Lego was created, she gave me a box with about 5,000 Lego pieces. I grew up with that box. So I would create things and build things since I was very young, very little. She didn't give me finished toys. She kept giving me Legos and puzzles and things to play that you need to put your mind to solve it.
Yeah.
And another thing is, at home, we had a very eclectic and vast library at home. In fact, the house was pretty much, the interior of the house was covered with books. So I had access to not just great books, but a surprising quantity of them. Yeah. For instance, when the Life Encyclopedia, well, Britannica Encyclopedia was there from the beginning, but Life Encyclopedia, I had the entire thing. You know, that blue encyclopedia of the entire world, it was there. Like every encyclopedia there was, I had it. I had access to. She arranged for me to have access not just to the library of the school like everybody else, but to the public library of the city. She arranged for, she took me to the university, to the local university, showed me where to go. So I would go and hang out in libraries. And there were no big bookstores at that time. But I was always a bookworm. And many times, and she made me learn languages. And so I would say that I may not, I may be able to compensate for a lot of my shortcomings with learning a way to go around them.
Yeah.
That is my superpower. That is my superpower.
But I come back to the point that one of the reasons you were successful was because you had an economic running style, and probably more importantly than that, you had a style that didn't lend itself to injury.
Yes.
And that is a fairly physical thing. However mentally tough or mentally prepared or confident or thoughtful you are about it, how your leg makes your ankle place on the surface of the road and how that shock transmits up through your body is something that is not related to your upbringing or your education. It's partly and largely a physical thing.
I don't think so. I believe that it has everything to do with my capacity to learn the correct method. And I was in the very beginning when I was telling my friends that I was going to do it. One of my friends said, and he is an athlete. He's like he's a professional level skier, and he said, "Look, I believe you'll probably do it, but I want you to promise me that you are going to read this book first." And he gave me his copy of Born to Run. So that was the only training that I had during the first week or so, was walking and reading that and learning about that there are people that run without shoes. They don't know they are so poor that they don't and they live a lifestyle where they didn't have access to any technology. How did they do it?
I run without shoes sometimes. Yeah. When I can feel an injury coming on, I'll often run without shoes because the feet claw slightly on grass, which they don't have the opportunity to do inside shoes, and it does make the whole process of running feel very, very different in a good way.
Yeah. So my methodology was I developed from that book. I was training in South Beach. I went around and I scouted out the parks and the best areas in the city where I could run in pavement, but very good pavement. And I would do the first 4 to 6 miles always barefoot.
Yeah.
Then I would put my shoes on and continue training.
Yeah. Did you run many miles across the States barefoot?
No, not at all. Not the run, just training. But during the run, when I was going across the desert, I was getting blisters because of the heat. Yeah. The foot would get too hot. So I got my flip-flops, and I adapted them, and I made huaraches out of the flip-flops. So this way, my feet were as close to barefoot as possible. And so I went through the entire state of about half of New Mexico and the entire state of Arizona and a little bit of California I did on flip-flops. And that really saved at the end of it. I didn't have any blisters. My feet healed pretty well.
Yeah.
Running that way. And on the way back, I bought some, it was New Balance, but it was a racer shoe, incredibly light, no support, no nothing. It felt so close to be barefoot.
Yeah.
But in a nice style and just enough protection from dirt and all that.
Yeah.
That worked very well.
Yeah, running shoes, if they're fairly minimalist, I think can have the effect of making you feel like that, like you're connected to the ground in a good way, and that does. Yeah. I think that greatly improves the sensation of running. Whereas if you're running on a pair of shoes that have a very thick sole, you're disconnected from the road surface or the ground, and that information is lost, and that's not good.
Yeah, about 6 months ago, one of my friends asked me to help his son. His son is in the Marines, and he failed one of their tests that he had to run 3 miles in less than 24 minutes. Mm-hmm. Something like that. 3 miles in less than 24 minutes. But to qualify really well, you need to do that in less than 21. And he couldn't do it. And the boy was devastated because he was great at everything else. So I took him on 3 days. They came over, and I basically spent the first day. I spent about 1 hour explaining to him my technique, and we did like 15 minutes running together barefoot here in Miami. The next day that we met, like a week later, we did a little more training like that, and we went to a running store, and I bought racing shoes for him. There were also no support, no nothing, completely flat, minimalist shoes. And he did some training like that, and then the third time that we met, I gave him my technique to learn to expand your lung capacity, which is something that more or less I developed myself. And he kept training that way, and he did the test recently, and he passed. He made it in 20 minutes and a half.
What's the lung test? What's the lung technique?
I told him to go to the computer and sort all his music on his iTunes, sort all the songs by the BPM, and take all the songs that were around 120 BPM. I said not faster than 115, not slower than 125. And the best example of that is Bohemian Rhapsody. So I told him, you are going to make a playlist that just has Bohemian Rhapsody 20 times. And when you run, you have to sing that song out loud. Because what happens is that we breathe at the same pace that we are running. Right? So it can be 4-1 when you're feeling fresh, then you switch to 3-1. So 3 steps for 1 breath. And as when you are spent at the end, you may be doing 1 breath per step when you are really, really spent. I said, we need to break that. We need to make, my idea is to make your breathing take 3, it was at least 3.5 steps. That's 120 BPMs if you're comparing that with Bohemian Rhapsody. And also, if you are breathing the usual way, you are taking air a certain quantity, or you are exhaling, a certain quantity, you are repeating that same pattern all the time. But if you are singing out loud, for a moment you need to take a lot of air, and then you sing that little part, and you need to breathe at the pace of the music. When the verse ends, that's when you do the breathing, and that is not going to match the running that you're doing, no matter the speed that you're doing.
Yeah.
So, and also Bohemian Rhapsody changes tempo several times through the song.
So are you saying this is a bit like altitude training in the sense
Exactly.
that you're depriving your body of oxygen to train it?
Yeah, even better. I thought by using that song, you are occasionally depriving, and other times you are giving it too much. So you are forcing yourself to take air at arbitrary paces that don't have anything to do with the run that you are doing.
Okay.
And so he did that, and that's how I trained, by the way. But I usually, when I was training, I was usually singing Frank Sinatra. Usually. So this way I was forcing myself to be breathing in and breathing out at the pace of the song, not at the pace of the run.
Yeah.
And of course, now imagine this. I was training after midnight, and I would buy a big burger or a pizza, and I would jog holding a pizza and singing Frank Sinatra out loud.
Yeah.
People would be sitting at the bars and restaurants and look at me, and they would go like, "What the fuck is going on?" You know, I was becoming famous in South Beach as the crazy guy running at night with a pizza or a burger and drinking beer. And
well, I should try that, because I do think some of these things have some potency. Emil Zatopek, I think, used to train by running.
He was fantastic.
Holding his breath. You know, it's not conventional, but it makes sense. If altitude training trains your body to handle oxygen better through deprivation, then presumably the similar effect can be achieved just by holding your breath and running 100 meters and gasping at the end.
Just put a mask. Just go to Home Depot and put a mask on your face. You are reducing your oxygen intake by some 10%.
Yeah.
That is like being some 600 meters to 1,000 meters up from your current altitude. So just by using a dollar worth of equipment, you are increasing your relative altitude by about 1,000.
I had to run a race in Taiwan about 20 years ago, and I knew it was going to be very, very hot and very, very humid. And England generally isn't hot and generally isn't humid other than when it's raining. So I trained with lots of jackets on for a few months, and it was very unpleasant and very uncomfortable. But you felt really good taking the jacket off.
Another thing I did, and I think you understand it, is I believe that when people go out and they run, let's say 5 miles, they are training for the first 5 miles of the run, right? So if you're training for a marathon, you are learning how to do the first 5 miles. I don't care about that. I can do the first 5 miles. That's not difficult. I'm training for the last 5 miles. So what are the conditions when you get to that point? First, you are exhausted. Second, you are tired in other ways, like you may be sleepy, you may be feeling cold, you are hungry, things like that. So I would start my training tired, exhausted, hungry, without enough clothes, and sleepy. Every training that I did was like that, because I wanted to train for the end of the run, not for the beginning. And I think that helped. I learned to keep going when I'm feeling miserable, when I'm really exhausted. And in fact, I keep telling my friends when we go for a run, and I say, man, like the first 3 miles, for me, every run, the first 3 miles are not easy. But then it gets easy, because you warm up and you're getting to a certain pace, right? So my solution is I try to imagine, I try to pretend that I'm beginning on mile 5, So which is just a psychological game, but I try to imagine. So how would that be if I was already feeling that way? And so to me, the running, all the technique takes a lot more mental game in that sense. You can really improve things by just thinking correctly. Why did I do my training after midnight? Because it was colder. I knew my run is going to be in the cold, so I need to train as cold as possible. It wouldn't help me to train during the day, when it's warm. Also, if it was raining, that's when I really made sure that I have to go and train, because I need to train when I'm wet and cold and feeling miserable. That's the best time. It was much more important. And another thing I did is, and this is also something that came from that book. I thought every day, if you're going to the track, you have a plan, right? You know how many laps you want to do.
Yeah.
You know the timing that you are trying to. You are working on consistency a lot.
Yeah.
If you are training for any regular event, you are training for that event. So there is a certain consistency behind it. But when you are there on the road, you are not really sure in the beginning of the day how far you are going to go. You have a certain goal, but you may end up doing 20 miles or 30 or 36. You don't really know. It will depend on the conditions at the end of the day. You may be tired and exhausted, but if you are not finding camping space, you have to keep going, no matter how exhausted you are. You know, if you're finishing the day and the next town is just 2 miles ahead, you don't want to stop here. You want to get into town and go to a hotel.
Sure.
You know, so the way that you finish is dictated by the circumstance, much more than by your own plan. So I thought I should do my training that way as well. I should train in such a way that I don't know how much is the training today. So the way I did it, and that was my training technique for the second run.
So did you throw dice?
No, better yet. I would take $2.25 with me, because that's the price for the bus. And I would go to a main avenue in town, and I would step into the first bus that came by, no matter where it's going. So I didn't know, and I would always ride to the end of the ride, to the end of the line. So I didn't know if the end of the line was 2 miles away or 10 or 15. I had no idea. And when I got there, I didn't have money with me. I didn't bring my wallet, and I didn't bring my phone.
Yeah.
You know, so the only way now is to run or walk home.
Having no choice is very underrated. No choice. Yeah, but
exactly.
Having no choice makes things simple.
Exactly. But also, I really wanted to prepare myself to not knowing. I wouldn't even look at the name of the line of the bus. I would just go into any bus.
Yeah. When I did,
that really helped.
I used to run. Well, I started off obviously marathon running, and then got into ultras, and I started to take part in 24-hour races where you just see how far usually on tracks. Yeah. How far can you run in 24 hours? And I evolved a technique of obviously dividing the 24 hours up into component parts, so you've got some sense of where you are and what your plan is, even when you can't really think straight because you're so tired. And generally, I divide the 24 hours up into 24-hour slots, and then try to run about 10k in each of those hour slots. But I wouldn't run for an hour. I'd run for 55 minutes, and then I'd plan to either walk or eat, or walk and eat for 5 minutes. But occasionally, and more often than not, you'd feel pretty good after 55 minutes. So you'd run for 60, and then you'd save up that 5 minutes and have it maybe 5 minutes later than you really planned to. And if you can keep that going, you can store up quite a good rest period, which you may never use. But it's psychologically good to feel that you've got that in the bank if you need it. You've earned it, and you've promised yourself it, but you don't have to take it. Yeah. And that was always a good feeling. But you didn't plan rigidly to stick to a given plan. You had to be flexible and sometimes run how you felt.
Yeah.
Not quite the same as what you're describing, but similar in some ways.
But again, what you were doing was you were creating a mental plan that you could use to manage your mind, and then with that manage your body. You know, because if you don't manage your mind very well, your mind is your greatest enemy during the run. If you are there for months, you know, like you guys were faster than me. I did it in 4 months and a half the first time. 4 months and a half, being in a certain way, you are isolated from your regular life. You are not isolated from your current situation. You are in contact with that. But you are isolated from your normal life. Right? So I like to joke that it was the same as being in jail, with the difference that I could get run over every day. and that was the danger. So if you are there for that long, and you are also always near relief, all you have to do when you are exhausted and tired and you are breaking down and you have inflammation and and you're not getting any younger, every hotel is an opportunity to relax. Every airport that you go by is an opportunity to go home. Every train station is an opportunity to just stop doing this stupid thing and go home. So now it takes discipline to keep going. That's why I really like the metaphor of the tunnel. The only way out is through the other end of it.
Yeah, it's like running A to B from point A to point B is much easier than doing laps and going past your front door every 10 minutes.
But the brain evolved for hundreds of thousands of years trying to make you save energy. And that's why in modern life, if you don't have an activity or lifestyle that keeps you active, you become obese because your brain is really good at making you slow down. Mm-hmm. And if you are smart, the excuses that you are creating to slow down, if you are smart, those excuses are going to be very smart as well. So you need to have a plan. You need to have an answer to that, which can be in the form of discipline and determination or strategies or a combination of all of that. So now back to your latest question about, so if I had an advantage, I would say that, yes, if I had an advantage, it is right here between my ears. I am really good at learning how to do things. And that takes me from not knowing and not having a clue to having a plan. And that plan, that is a risk that it fails. But I create the possibility. I can get into any new idea, any new plan, any new venture with a possibility that it's going to work out.
Okay, so if your plan of running across America succeeded because of your mental approach, are you tempted to try another completely unconnected challenge?
Yes, I'm already doing it.
Which is?
Yeah, I decided to build my own boat and travel the world on it. And it's a massive project. It's taking... when I decided to do it, I knew it's going to take more time, more money, more dedication, and more help than anything else that I did in my life. It's not just I decide to have a boat. That would be simple. I could just get the money and buy a boat. It's not complicated. No, I decided to design a boat, build it, and travel the world with that. Again, it's the same situation. If you ask me, so how many boats have you done in your life before? 0. It can sound at the same time incredibly self-confident and incredibly arrogant.
Yeah.
And stupid.
Yeah, it's only arrogant and stupid if you fail. It's confident if you succeed.
Exactly.
Now, what you need to do is once you've made this boat, you need to sail from Florida to California around South America.
That's one thing that will happen. I also have a plan of going around Canada. I want to do the Northern Passage, which is...
Don't you think that's a bit easy?
It's not easy. It's not easy. It's even for very experienced sailors with very good boats. Yeah. It's not an easy passage, but it's one that I decided to do.
Okay, are you going to do it solo?
No, I don't like the idea of sailing solo.
Yeah.
For technical reasons and for I just don't think it's necessary, and also I don't think it's pleasant. You look a little like Pierce Brosnan right now.
He doesn't run as well as I do.
I bet he doesn't. So yeah, I decided to build, and it's a big boat. It's a 20-meter boat. So 20 meter, 30 tons. It's a gigantic project that will take, well, by definition, it's going to take the rest of my life, because once I build it, I want to travel the world.
How are you going to keep your running up if you're on this boat?
I don't run much now. I run for fun.
But is running a closed chapter for you now you've completed the trip?
No, because it's something that I like to do occasionally. For instance, I would do again El Camino de Santiago. It's a really fun 2 weeks, you know. So, but as I said earlier, if I do it again, I want to do it without any luggage. You know? So I would like to do something like that. I really would like to do some running in the Alps. Do some ridge running, which requires some preparation because it's very foreign to me. So I would go and just spend like a month there, just preparing and do. And I don't want to do much, just a little bit, but I think it's going to be something gorgeous. I would like to do a little bit of running in Antarctica. So one day I'll visit. Antarctica is in my plans. I want to visit there. I would like to do a little bit of running there, like run from one of those research stations to another, something like that. Yeah. So running to me is not something that is. It's not such a special event anymore. Now it's part of a natural part of what I do. You know, there is this adventure, this plan, and part of that has running in it. And then I want to go to the other thing, and then over there I need to do climbing, and the other project I want to do diving. You know, so it depends on what it is.
That's where you and I differ, because I think all the challenges I would like to face up to are one way or another running challenges, whereas your challenges have involved running, but now might involve marine construction,
doing other things,
climbing, or other vehicles for challenge.
Yeah, I'll give another example. I'm planning to learn diving because I want to do 2 things. One is night diving. I'm really attracted by the idea of diving in the dark. And another is shark diving.
I could think of nothing I would like to do less than diving in the dark.
Diving in the dark, and I would like to do also shark diving. Diving with wild sharks.
Yeah. What about diving in the dark with sharks?
I don't know. That one, I don't know. I want to do solo skydiving, but solo.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go through the training, and then I'll do a solo skydiving, because after I do that, I want to do a night jump, which is, to me, is one of a fascinating idea. Things like that. So every one of these items that I put on my bucket list has something special about it, has some challenge to it.
Yeah, that's the common word, isn't it?
And my bucket list has about 20 items or so, and I already did like 5 or 6. So I think my rate of success is pretty good.
Yeah. Are there any challenges that you would seriously consider that really scare you?
Yes, a few of them are scary, and one of them in particular is dicey enough and violent enough that it may happen, but I'm avoiding it. But it's something that may happen one day, but not by my choice. You see, there are things in my list that are not even my choice, but they are there because I think they make sense. This item that I'm talking about, every item on my list is written in some kind of poetic language. So one of them I wrote, I want to save an innocent life. I didn't write I want to save many lives, or I want to save someone's life. No, I want to save an innocent life. So
And
I think that
how do you-
on my travels around the world, one day I may witness a situation in which an innocent life is at risk. And I know that there is a pretty good chance that I'll get in the middle of that fight. And that means I may not make it. So I dread that day. I'm trying to avoid it, but I know that it may happen. And if it happens and I win, I'm going to mark that item as done.
Yeah, but it sounds like unless you put yourself consciously in a situation where you could face that, it will be purely a question of luck or coincidence if you find yourself in such a situation.
No, I think that is one component of decision in that, and I can give you an analogy that will explain that. If you are a civilian, if you are a regular person, and you see that there is a fire, there is a danger, there is a war or something, right? You as a civilian have the privilege of running the other way, right? But if you are a soldier, a cop, a fireman, you have a duty to go towards the danger, which is against your instinct, right? But by your decision that you took previously, you are going to go towards the danger.
Yeah.
That is the decision that I took years ago. I said one day, the fireman or the cop or the soldier didn't choose that danger. That didn't choose the day that danger will exist. He just took the decision that when it happens, he will go towards it.
Yeah, but
that's the decision that I took. I took the decision that one day I may face that situation.
Yes, I can
go for it.
I can understand you saying that if that circumstances arise, I won't run away, I'll run towards. Mm-hmm. That's fine. You can make that decision now and stick by it when the occasion happens. But how do you know the occasion's going to happen other than by chance?
It may not happen. It may not happen at all, but I'm okay with that.
You could make it more likely by becoming a guardian angel on the New York subway, or by putting yourself in some particularly dangerous situation that most people will run away from.
I'm not interested in that. Yeah, I just took the decision that if one day I witness something like that happening, and it may be because of a conflict or because of crime, it may be, I don't know what it's going to be.
But it's.
I decided that I will get into it.
Yeah, but deciding to run across the states or deciding to build the boat is a conscious decision that you have control over.
Yeah.
This situation is something that's not in your control, although your reaction to it, if it arose, would be in your control.
Exactly, you're exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
So it may not. It's on your bucket list, but it may never come to pass.
It may never happen. Yes, there are few items that may never happen. For instance, I wrote that I want to go to space. It's becoming more possible. I would say it's not a crazy idea. I think that the cost of going to orbit will be reasonable within the next 10 years or so. So I'll probably be able to afford it. But there's no guarantee. It may not happen during my lifetime. Or I may not have the money when that time comes. But I'm trying to prepare for that. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not poor and that I'm not unhealthy when that time comes.
I'm not sure if going into space is more or less scary than diving in the dark with sharks. But it's certainly something to write another book about.
It may be, yeah. I'm fascinated with the idea of going into orbit. Just for like a day. Sometimes people think of they want to go to Mars or anything like that. Good for them, but I'm not interested. I like the idea that humans are going to Mars, that humans will go to the moon and, and live in the moon. And I think all that is brilliant and amazing. I just don't want to be part of it, But I would like to. I would like to orbit the Earth. That definitely I would like to do.
It's a crazy life, though, isn't it? When you think that we're talking about sending people to Mars or traveling around the Earth in a space capsule, and yet here we are in the middle of a crisis, which is to do with things that we can't even see.
Yeah, but also imagine this. Look at what we are doing right now. We are talking using computers at an incredibly low cost, and we are a continent away, right? We are like, 8,000 miles away? So I don't even know the number.
Whereabouts are you?
Huh?
Where are you?
In Miami.
Miami, okay.
So we are thousands of miles away. 10 years ago, no, not 10 years, but 20 years ago, what we are doing was science fiction.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It was either too expensive, it existed, but it was incredibly expensive and technical and difficult, right? Or it was something that you only see in the movies.
Yeah.
30 years ago, nobody could do it except for like presidents, and maybe some people on TV. But now we are doing this. It became normal.
Yeah.
Finally.
This is an example of how technology has made you and I authors without us having to go pleading with a publisher to take our book on board. We self-publish.
Exactly. And we author a book without ever meeting most of the other authors.
And this book, it comes through my letterbox 36 hours after I pay for it.
Exactly.
And it wasn't printed. It wasn't printed until I asked for it. It's extraordinary.
It is.
This book, at the back, it's printed in Great Britain. So your book will be printed somewhere in the States. Mine is printed in Great Britain.
That's interesting. So you see, this book is a technological triumph as much as it was a human triumph. It's an incredible thing that you can do this today. We have computers. Did you ever dream of having a supercomputer? Here is one, supercomputer. Right? The technology that we have on our phones today was something that you could only dream of a few years back. So a smartphone today is not smarter than you, but it's already smarter than an idiot. It's catching up. The AI and phones and computers and the internet, all this is fascinating to me. Fascinating. I am in awe of how interesting our reality is. So much that it's ruining sci-fi to me. Because I watch sci-fi and I think, but this is fucking boring compared to reality.
Yes, I suppose when science fiction became popular in the 50s, it was light years ahead of what was actually achievable.
Exactly.
It was just a function of people's imaginations. But imagination is not that far ahead of reality now.
It's so difficult to write sci-fi now. That's why you see so much more fantasy movies. So they have to put the story like 3,000 years ahead so they can put some crazy stuff and not obey the laws of physics or anything. And because otherwise they cannot, it's very difficult to write it. I admire so much guys like Andy Weir that wrote The Martian, because he imagined something that would be happening just 30 years ahead. That is really difficult writing. It's much easier to imagine something happening 1,000 years ahead, because then you are not bound by the reality being so near.
Have you heard of a series in Britain called Black Mirror?
I saw it, but I didn't like it. I thought it was too technophobe.
It's very disturbing.
It's very
But
disturbing, but I think I don't like it because
Yeah.
for every aspect of technology, they imagine the worst possible scenario, the
Yeah,
worst
yeah.
possible interpretation of that
Yes.
technology. But that's not how the world is. I don't like sci-fi when it takes only a dark view of it. That's why I don't like movies where like the world went to shit, because that's not how the world works. Even when big catastrophes happen, even when we nearly destroy everything, we still rebuild and it comes out nicely later. May not be nice enough on the same lifetime, but just a little later, it's fine, right? If you look at, just imagine right now, being 90 years ago, being over there in England. You are just out of First World War, that killed a lot of people. You're just out of the Spanish flu that was devastating. There is famine.
Wall Street crash.
And you can see, if you are smart enough, you can see that the next World War is coming. Like, it was a terrible time. It would suck if you were a woman. It would absolutely suck if you are black. If you're any kind of minority, it would be terrible. All right? For human rights, it was completely shit. Like the world, I would say, Europe, around 90 years ago, was horrible. Okay? And look at what it is today. Even with all the problems we have, it's amazing if you just compare with a little bit of time. If you just compare with 100 years ago or 50 years ago, compare Europe today with Europe of 1950, it's completely better. Right?
Yeah,
There
we're
is
very
no
privileged to live.
There is no
We're
way
very
to make a
privileged.
parallel.
Yeah,
So the world keeps getting better, even when big, horrible stuff happens. It still recovers and improves.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think that's going to change. It's going to keep recovering and improving.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But drawing on how lucky we are to be alive in this period of history, we wouldn't be running across the States if this was 50 years ago. We'd be chained to a job, earning a living, keeping a roof over our heads.
Well, that's how most people are today.
Leisure. Yeah. Running across the States is quite indulgent.
Yes.
Amongst other things, it's indulgent.
It is.
And it's luxurious.
I remember one day I was in California visiting Death Valley. That was 2010. I would say about 8-9 months before I did my first run. I was traveling around America by motorcycle. And I was in Death Valley. And I stopped somewhere there to see Death Valley. And so I parked my motorcycle in a parking lot nearby, and then a group of bikers from nearby, they stopped their motorcycles and they saw my bike and they saw the license plate from Massachusetts. So it's obvious at least I crossed the entire country to be there. So one lady, she came over and she was talking to me and asked me what I was visiting, and we exchanged some stories. And then she asked, so how long are you on the road? So about 3 months so far, but in another month I'll be back in Boston, I'll be home. She said, you're traveling for 4 months? I said, yeah. She said, you must be very rich. And I said, yes, or I'm very broke. One of those two. Right? So there are more than one way to get things done, to do things. Of course, the most common is by having a lot of money. It's not the only way, though. If you don't have a lot of financial resources, things are still possible, but they are going to take a lot more creativity, a lot more, or risk, or opportunism, or something like that. But it's still possible. However, what you just said is fundamental. We are in a time where more things are possible because we have the technology, we have the knowledge about economics and opportunities and global resources. There are a lot of things that became more possible now. And so the times that we are going through, I definitely think are the best I could imagine. There is no time in the past that I think would be better than 2020. No time. Not. And some people may be watching this podcast a few weeks in the future and disagree with that. They'll say, well, but there are people dying, and there are say, yeah, but there are people dying all the time. It's not a privilege of 2020. Oh, suddenly now people begin to die. No, there are problems. There are problems with every year, but and when especially when a problem hits your friends or your family, then it becomes catastrophic, and everything, the perspective on everything changes now to that. But in general, I don't think there is any time better than now.
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
Yeah.
There was a very interesting discussion by an economist that I was watching, and he was explaining that as recently as, say, the 1870s, people had to spend a vast amount of the income that they earned on electricity. Well, not electricity, but lighting.
Yeah.
Candles, paraffin stoves, something that would give them basic light after the sun went down, but before they went to bed.
Yes.
And over time, the percentage of time we have to work to earn enough to power a light bulb has gone from 20% of our income down to 0.001% of our income. And it's just an example of how the basics in life have become ever more affordable, to the point where we can then indulge ourselves in luxuries.
Was that Hans Rollins saying that?
No, he was an English economist who worked for the Economist magazine.
Okay.
But maybe this is a common theme amongst
it is. I would say
lots of people.
I probably saw something like that on a video by Hans Rollins. Definitely, Steven Pinker talks about that.
Yeah.
Peter Zion talks about it. Several people mentioned that they compare how, for instance, Hans Rollins, he explains how life changed since the invention of the washing machine. Because before the washing machine, women had to spend several hours of every week washing clothes. So that was a fundamental part of woman's life in every culture, from Africa to England.
Yeah.
Every woman would spend, because it was mostly the woman doing it, but then he even says that the washing machine was as revolutionary for women as birth control was a little later. Because the freedom that birth control gave them to control reproduction, the washing machine gave them the freedom to control a lot of their time.
Yeah.
Like
Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You've got to have a roof over your head. You've got to have oxygen. You've got to have water. You've got to have a roof over your head. Then you can move towards the higher level things in life, like good food or nutrition, or drinking wine. And by having a washing machine or birth control, you can then reclaim areas of your life for the better, reclaim leisure time, spend more time doing fulfilling things rather than survival-based things.
Yeah, and you see how many things improve. Like when you study the economy, especially the economy of developing countries, when women gain control over their reproduction and access to education, the entire village improves, like economically, in living standards. That's the most predictable measure of living standards, of improving living standards in every culture. That is not a single exception. In every culture, when women gain control, access to education, It's education, mobility, and reproduction control.
But lots of countries don't have that at the moment.
No, some of them, but and that's when you see things getting better over time. Usually, the marker right there in the beginning of the curve going up, right in the beginning, that's what happened. And there is no exception to that rule. It's very, very predictable. So yeah, I love to study the history of things. Of how things happen, and I'll give an example. I was watching videos about the history of the toilet and how it came to be in Egypt first, and then later in England, and through Victorian times, how it became something that was then normal in the upscale homes. And how it was then later spread to the middle class, but the toilets were shared. So like a building or what we would call a condominium today would have a shared room with several toilets, and everybody would use and share that space. And then later, how that guy Crapper started selling toilets, and then it became the Crapper, and the history of the toilet is fantastic. It's very interesting, and it's right there in England. And
the cornerstone of civilization.
I would say so, maybe. I don't know, I went to England only once so far, and I really enjoyed it. I was lucky, it was a beautiful week, it was sunny. It was sunny that entire week. Really beautiful, and I stayed in Greenwich. Did a lot of running there. And I had this dream that I wanted to run, to go to the city center and run all the bridges. And go across the river several times. And I did it. I went to like 4 or 5 different bridges, taking the metros and walking and going around. And I ran each one of them, and it was magnificent. I really like it.
Well, if it was sunny all week, you were lucky.
It was very sunny that entire week, and every day I went to a different restaurant, random, without doing any research. I would just walk around and then see some restaurant and go in and try something, right? And every one of them were excellent. So
the reason for that is because English people think English food is very dull and boring. And it's by and large it's true.
A lot of people think that.
But it means that in a big city like London, there's pressure to have food from all corners of the world because our own food isn't great.
But I tried even English food that I tried was good. But then that brings me to the
we have great restaurants from around the world.
But that brings me to the end of my visit to England. That was very interesting. I was going to take the train, the fast train to Calais, and when you do it, you go through customs. Through European customs, still in England, right? So before you get on the train, you go to customs. So the European customs agent asked me. So he looked at my passport. He asked how long have I been in England? I said, about a week. So what was the purpose of your visit to England? I said, I was here for the weather and the food. And he thought about it. He said, "Okay."
But seriously, the restaurants in England, in London, are really, really good because we are very, very outward looking in terms of our taste in food. We're very international because we seek food from anywhere other than our own place.
I like it, and I think I will probably be back in October. There is an event I would like to attend in southwest of London, and I'll probably go for that.
What's that?
It's called Fully Charged. It's an event about electric vehicles and electrification and renewable energy and things like that. they focus a lot on cars, but they also have other things related to electric transport. So everything is related either to electric transport or electric energy production or storage. And it's a big event. I went to the one in Austin just like a month ago, and it was superb. You know, I really enjoy it. So I'll probably go to that one.
Yeah, well, storage, battery storage, and making them more economic than they are at the moment is going to be absolutely key, isn't it, for the development of electric cars?
Not just that, but also for renewables. Expanding the use of renewables requires storage. And some countries have the privilege of being able to use high volume storage that is not in batteries. Like they can use pump hydro like they do in some countries. Or they have some other kind of massive energy storage. But most of the world doesn't have that. They will need batteries. Some kind of battery. It doesn't need to be all lithium, but they will require some sort of batteries. And that is fundamental. Without it, we cannot. The idea of having everything renewable, or zero carbon and all that stuff, it's all pipe dream without storage. There is no way to make it work. Yeah. So it is the most important. It's the most important next step, and I am very convinced that the industry is solving this problem. The technologies, the products, the solutions for that are reaching the market already. Some of them are already like being launched this year, or they are in use already. New better batteries or in other forms of storage. It's all happening already. So I think that by the end of the year we'll have a lot of good news related specifically to storage.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Generating energy is already relatively easy. It's not a major challenge. It's expensive in a few places, but it's not a major challenge. The challenge is storage. Yeah. But we are going in the right direction, and we are going fast.
Yeah.
Right. So if you don't have anything else you want to talk about first, I would like to tell a short story. A short story about something that happened during my run. But do you have anything else that you want to say about your run?
Let's hear your story. Then I'm going to have to cook supper.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it was. When you go across America and you are meeting people along the road, the number of great experiences is incredible. Like I knew it to some point, but I really learned that most people are incredibly friendly and kind, and it changed my perspective on people. I'm not saying that they are smart, but what I am saying is that they are kind, they are hardworking, they are honest, and they are very friendly. Most people. Mm-hmm. And by most, it's like upwards of 99%. It's something great to witness as you are going. And one thing that happened was right in the beginning, during my first week. I was reaching the middle of Florida, and that night it was going to be below freezing. It was going to be a very cold night, and I knew that. I was crossing a little town called forgot the name, but it's in the lakes region here in Florida. So I knew it was going to be really cold, and everybody was preparing for that. And a guy stopped his pickup truck on the side of the road, So when I approached, he came to talk to me, and he asked, "Oh, I see, are you traveling? Like, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm going across America. I'll go all the way to Los Angeles." So, "Oh, that's amazing. But you know that it's going to be really cold today?" I said, "Yeah, I know. I saw. Someone told me." He said, "Yes, that's true." And then he took his jacket off and he offered it to me.
Wow.
And then I for a few seconds I didn't know what to say. But then I explained to him, "Look, I am moved by, it's so generous and it's so nice that you are doing it.
Yeah.
Just happens that I have very good equipment and I have a very good jacket, so I'm not going to take it because I already have one, so please give it, to someone that needs it." But I don't even have words to thank you. I don't have words that match the generosity, the gesture.
Yeah.
And so that was a very interesting thing that happened to me right in the beginning. What is most interesting is that something similar to that happened hundreds of times. It's hundreds. Every other day or so, or every third day, someone would stop. "Hey, I brought you a bicycle." One guy stopped at a pickup truck and said, "Look, bringing you a bicycle so you can travel by bicycle." And then I explained to him that I wanted to do that on foot and all that. And he said, "You're crazy, right?" I said, "Yeah, I know. All right." There was another one near Port St. Joe, Florida, that this guy stopped at a pickup truck. And he came to talk to me, and he had a bag from McDonald's. He said, "Oh, yeah, 2 days ago I saw you some 60 miles away. I'm a contractor, so I take this road every day. And yesterday I saw you 30 miles away, and now I saw you here, so you're traveling, right?" I said, "Yes, I am. I'm going to Los Angeles." So, "Wow, that's crazy. And here's the deal, I brought you lunch." So he brought me a lunch from McDonald's, right? Oh, so I thank him and all that, and he said, "All right, have a good day," and he left. But then later that day, I discovered that the nearest McDonald's was 18 miles away, ahead of us. So that means he passed me by, he drove more than 18 miles, bought that food, drove back,
came back to you
18 miles to give it to me.
Yeah, that's something.
And that's something. Yeah. There was another case near New Orleans that this guy asked me what I was doing and all that, and I told the story, and we were on the side of the road next to his pickup truck, and he told me about his son. His son had cancer, and ended up dying, like when he was like 6 years old. And that nearly devastated him. And during the time that they were trying everything possible, and he was taking him across the country, visiting hospitals and trying everything, they got a lot of support from the McDonald Foundation, that they paid for all the trips. They gave him money for, to be possible. Usually he could get the treatment for free, but they cover all the travel expenses for them. And he said, we lost that battle, but I got so much help. And when he saw the card that I gave him, he told there that I was doing that and raising money for a charity and all that. And he said, "And I would like to help you." And he opened his wallet and he gave me all his money. And it was something like $100-something, right? But that's all the money that he had that day. Probably coming back from work, he got paid and gave everything to me. And when he did that, he was crying. Yeah. America, just like pretty much everywhere else, is loaded. It's full of amazing people. Sometimes I see people on the internet saying, "Oh, I'm afraid of going there because of all the crime and the guns and the cars and all that." I said, "No, come over. Leave your presumptions at home
Yeah.
and come over, and you're going to discover that it's very safe, it's very fun, people are friendly, they are amazing, they are helpful, and they want you to visit.
Yeah.
So please come over and visit, and you're going to discover that it's actually awesome.
Yeah, yeah. We were traveling through Colorado, and we got talking to a couple in a lay-by in the middle of nowhere in the national park, and they lived about 150 miles up the road further east, and they just said, look, when you're passing through town, come and stay with us. So we stayed with them for 3 days. So we stayed with them and then went back at night time, stayed again. So until it got to the point where we were running too far away from their house, we stayed with them, and they didn't know us at the start at all. But we felt, obviously by the time we'd stayed with them for 3 days, we ended up friends. But that's again just an example of how kind people were.
Whoa, man, it was really good talking to you, Chris, and I hope
you too.
I hope it's not the last one. And next time that I go to England, I'll try to meet with you. If you come to America for any reason, or if you would like to visit, please visit me. I would love to continue this conversation in person.
Yep. Okay, that's a very kind offer, and the same to you. And we'll keep in touch.
All right. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah. Take care.
All right.
We hope you like this podcast as much as we like to produce it. This has been made possible by the efforts of dozens of volunteers, supporters, partners, and visionaries that are helping us build Voyager's World. Please visit our website,